Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 362, Lights, Camera Up, Action. The episode begins with Ash and the gang just outside Fortree City, taking a little break so that Ash could admire his newest gym badge, the Feather Badge. And he bragged about how he had just won the badge and shit, and how grateful he was to have it. As Pikachu, Max, May, and Brock all sat down on some rocks, and Ash continued to brag, he stated how he now only had 2 more gym badges to go until he could enter the Hoenn League. Obviously, Ash wanted to get to his next gym as soon as possible, so he quickly ushered for his friends to stop sitting on the rocks and resting and continue on the journey, so that they could go to the next city for the next badge, although Max pointed out that Ash didn't even know where the next city was for his 7th gym battle, so he shouldn't be in a rush to go there. Ash simply asked where the gym was located, asking for Max or Brock to look in the Pokénav or the guidebook to find out, and they obliged. Brock was able to find information in his guidebook first, confirming that the closest gym to where they were currently was in Mosdeep City. Although Brock clarified that that would be their long-term destination, their next actual destination would be Lily Cove City, since apparently the fastest way to get to Mosdeep from where they were now would be to cut through Lily Cove City. So that was their next destination. Brock also read that from Lily Cove City, the way that a person got to Mosdeep was by a ship, and this excited May, as she wanted to go across the ocean again. So Ash and the gang officially set off to Lily Cove City, and as they were walking, they hear a man yelling in a nearby lake with a camera up that seemed to be carrying some fragile equipment. The man was yelling because the camera up was stuck in the water and couldn't get out, and the man was basically scared that all the equipment that was on camera up could potentially get damaged in the water, and he just wanted to get his camera up out of the water as well. Thankfully, since Ash and the gang heard his desperate yelling, they decided to come and help. The man instantly thanked Ash and the gang for their bravery to come in the water and help, and Ash then decided to send out his Torkoal to help out, having it stand in the water and use its strength to help push camera up. May, however, didn't go in the water, unlike Brock, Max, and Ash, and the man. She instead just stayed at the riverbank with Pikachu, and with her Bulbasaur, who she sent out, and she had her Bulbasaur use Vine Whip to help pull it from the shore. And eventually, with the combined effort of Ash and the gang, the man, Bulbasaur, and Torkoal, especially with Bulbasaur's Vine Whip pulling it to shore, the camera was back on dry land with no damaged equipment. Having crossed the river to the other side, the man gratefully thanks Ash and the gang for their help and introduced himself as Elijah. Max was kind of curious as to what all the equipment camera was carrying was for, and he then took a closer look at the equipment and saw a camera and a film set, so came to the conclusion that the guy must have been related to movies in some way, and Elijah confirmed this, stating that he had a whole bunch of filming equipment, adding that he ran a portable movie theater so that he could display movies to locals around the area who like movies but don't get many opportunities to watch them because they weren't in a big city or anything like that. So basically, he traveled around to smaller areas that didn't have actual movie theaters, and he showed them some movies, and he made these movies himself, adding that they were silent movies and also short films, so they weren't like super huge epics, but they satisfied the people. It was better than having no movies. He also admitted that while he did intend for his movies to be for all ages, most of his demographic did happen to be young kids. And we then see a flashback of Elijah showcasing one of his films at his portable movie theater setup. Elijah then reveals that he currently had a film reel ready in a box that he was on his way to display in an area, and Max inquired as to what this movie was, leading Elijah to reveal that it was called Plessel&Minen's Great Adventure, otherwise known as Plessel&Minen and the Princess Rescue. There was 2 titles that he was working on. Ash was amazed at the fact that Camera could hold all of the film equipment and realized how necessary it was, since Elijah was constantly on the move to different locations, so he had to have a Pokemon that was willing to carry his shit for him. As for May and Max, they just got excited at the mention of Plessel&Minen and wished Elijah the best of luck, hoping that his movie would go well. However, there's a little bit of a change of plans, as Ash and the gang decide to watch the movie at the portable movie theater when Elijah arrived, because Elijah revealed that he was actually going in the same direction as Ash and the gang anyways, and the movie was going to be played tomorrow night. So, since they were going in the same direction, Ash and the gang decided to join Elijah to the spot where he was going to place his portable movie theater so they could enjoy the show. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were spying on Ash and the gang from their Meowth balloon, not from some bushes this time. And they also noticed Elijah and his camera up, and they declared, after examining camera up with their binoculars, that they wanted to steal both Pikachu and camera up this time. While Team Rocket was spying, though, Chimecho had been let out of its Pokeball by James, as James always liked it to calm it down whenever he started to overthink things, or when he wasn't able to come up with a good plan. And since James was always either not able to come up with a plan or overthinking things, it seemed like Chimecho was always at work, using its chiming sound to calm James down, although Jessie found this sound annoying and complained about Chimecho being out of its Pokeball if it wasn't even battling, and begged James to recall it, practically forcing him to by yelling at him. However, when James tried to recall it, Chimecho did its now regular mischievous thing of wrapping around James' face, utilizing its tail. Despite this, though, James was able to get Chimecho back in his Pokeball anyways. As Meowth takes an even closer look with the binoculars, he notices the film equipment that was on top of the camera, and he gets another idea, which was to steal the camera movie equipment so he could give it to Giovanni. And Meowth then had a boss fantasy about what Giovanni would do with the film equipment, imagining Giovanni having his own little private room with all the movies he could ever want, and being able to relax in his lounge chair just watching movies. And Meowth also added in another detail to his fantasy, hoping that Giovanni would be especially impressed with Meowth, not more so than Jesse and James, because Meowth would not only bring Giovanni the movie equipment, but he would also star in a whole bunch of movies that he would put on the movie equipment before giving to Giovanni, such as a movie called God at Dance, which Meowth envisioned Giovanni watching. And Meowth hoped that after seeing all these movies, and after Meowth had delivered the movies to Giovanni, then Giovanni would basically really respect him, and perhaps replace his Persian with him. James questioned why Meowth wanted to steal both the camera and the film equipment, and not just the film equipment, when it seemed like that was all Meowth was talking about. But Meowth countered that Giovanni could also use the camera for hiking trips in deserts and shit like that, and he had a boss fantasy about that as well. James was still skeptical, but Jessie cut in, agreeing with Meowth that they should steal both the equipment and the camera, admitting that she was skeptical that they would be able to steal both, but she wanted to try. So that was officially their plan. James reminded Jessie about Pikachu though, but Jessie and Meowth just stated that they were going to focus all their efforts on camera and the film equipment. Meanwhile, back with Ash and gang and Elijah. Elijah had led everyone to a bridge that was supposed to take them across a river closer to where he was supposed to lay the portable feeder, but much to the group's dismay, they all found the bridge broken, so they were going to have to find some other way to cross the river. Although Elijah knew getting across the river without the bridge would be difficult, since Camerupt couldn't swim. Unfortunately, Ash and the gang saw no other way to cross the river aside from actually going through it, so they managed to find the spot where it was the narrowest and shallowest. Elijah didn't understand why Ash and the gang had decided to go to this specific part of the river to cross, but Ash and the gang revealed that even though Camerupt couldn't swim, they could just push it along the river like they had done earlier. And they wanted to find the shallowest and narrowest spot to do so it would make the pulling easier. Well, Elijah was skeptical about Ash and the gang pushing his Camerupt along the river again, since the current was very strong, but as Elijah remembered Ash and the gang helping him pull Camerupt across the last river, he realized that that river also had strong currents and was deeper, so this river should be easier to cross. So he officially permitted Ash and the gang to help him cross Camerupt once again through the river. Shortly after, Ash and the gang had just started to push Camerupt, though, they suddenly fell into a hole as the ground just outside of the river collapsed underneath them. Ash cursed himself for not being able to know when a hole trap was laid by now, as he was constantly hit by hole traps, and he immediately suspected that Team Rocket was involved, and it was confirmed that they were, as Team Rocket then arrived in their Meowth balloon, flying up above the hole. Team Rocket then does their motto, as they reveal that they were the ones who actually ended up cutting the bridge, so that Ash and the gang couldn't cross it and would fall into the hole trap. After revealing this, Team Rocket then deploy a robotic arm from the bottom of their Meowth balloon, and they use it to grab Camerupt and the film equipment. They then start to leave in their Meowth balloon, making Elijah panic at the fact that they had his Camerupt, but Ash didn't panic whatsoever, as he assured Elijah that he had this under control, sending out his Corphish, which uses its claw to cut the robotic hand that grabbed Camerupt, freeing Camerupt as he drops back down to the ground, and then Corphish blasts Team Rocket off with a bubble beam, and everyone cheers. With Team Rocket gone, Ash and the gang help Elijah get Camerupt over the river, while May goes into her reporter personality. Remember that? Yeah, she was doing that again, and she was talking as if they were on some grand adventure expedition, with Camerupt being this precious cargo that they had to deliver to a destination. After crossing the river, they eventually made it to a wooded area, and after this, they made it to a dangerous mountain pass filled with rocky cliffs. And May got so distracted by this area, trying to pretend to film it, that when she heard some rumbling up ahead, she focused in on the sound with her fake camera, which was just her hands. And she continued to focus with her hands as a camera on the source of the rumbling, which was some rocks falling down from the cliff, and she focused on them for so long that she didn't move out of the way of them, and was almost crushed by them, having to be pulled out of the way by Max at the very last second. Once the dust cleared, May was just glad to be alive, but Elijah wasn't glad at all, as he declared that he was hoping to make it to his destination, which was a village, by nighttime, so that he could have a whole day to prepare, but he now couldn't, as he saw that all the boulders that had fallen now blocked the path, having formed a pile that was too big for even Camerupt to deal with. Well, technically he could, but he would likely apply so much force that it would destroy the entire rocky cliff and just cause an avalanche, which would just make the situation worse. Knowing that they couldn't advance, Ash and the gang and Elijah decided to camp out in the woods for the night, so that they could come up with a way to advance. Once everyone had arrived in the woods, Brock cooked a stew and made some Pokemon food for Pikachu and Camerupt. And also, May and Ash had recalled Torkoal and Bulbasaur, if it wasn't obvious. Anyways, while they were all enjoying Brock's food, Elijah talked about his job and stated that his work of delivering a portable movie theater to different villages was very dangerous, but he did it anyways because he felt like he had an obligation to entertain people with movies who couldn't access them. Elijah then compliments Brock's stew, as do Ash, May, and Max. Max then questioned Elijah on how he got paid for doing this job when it didn't seem like he had a boss, and he didn't charge any of the watchers anything. So Elijah revealed that even though he called this a job, he didn't make any goddamn money. This just made Ash and the gang even more enamored with Elijah, realizing that he cared about people so much that he was willing to go on dangerous journeys just to get to villages to help people see movies for free. Although Elijah then added that what had happened today was definitely not the most dangerous thing that had even happened to him ever. He talked about how he usually actually fell down off of cliffs and almost died, or he was chased by Tauros, and that was just some of the bullshit he's encountered. Elijah then revealed yet another reason why he had so much motivation to continue his unpaid work, stating that one of the movies that he had geared at younger audiences, called Camp Pikachu, was really appreciated by a girl who saw it, named Mariah. And he opened up his backpack and took out a letter from her, Yeah, that's right. A girl loved the movie so much that she wrote him a letter about it, and it basically talked about how she really liked the main characters of the movie, the Pichu Bros. No, not the same Pichu Bros from the Meow specials. Elijah then added that Mariah probably particularly liked this movie because, in her village she didn't have a movie theater. So he also revealed that the letter had asked if he could come back to her village and give another movie. So I think this implied that the village that Elijah was heading towards was this girl's village, and he was going to deliver her another movie. And we then see a flashback of Mariah and a whole bunch of other kids in her village saying goodbye to Elijah after he left, after showing them the Camp Pikachu movie. Basically, Elijah's ultimate motivation was related to the fact that it was very important to show movies on a big screen rather than on the television because it could be a very special bonding moment for people. So he wanted to make sure that towns who didn't get this experience often would be able to get this experience. Elijah then revealed that despite him running a portable theater business, this didn't mean that he didn't want people from bigger towns that had movie theaters to be able to watch his movies. And he'd actually released several of his movies into theaters of the bigger towns and assumed that the gang was from bigger towns and asked them if they had ever watched any movies, since they may have been made by him, since he made quite a few movies. Ash revealed that he did actually watch a movie when he was little, since Pallet Town did have a movie theater, and he remembered watching one with his mom and Professor Oak and Gary, as well as a few of his Pallet Town friends. That's right, guys, there's Gary's debut in the series. Whoa. Through a fucking movie theater flashback, but anyways, as for what the movie was about, it was about a trainer named Red. This is obviously a reference to the Pokemon games, but it's also a reference to the Pokemon manga as well. But anyways, the trainer named Red had a Pikachu and a hungry Clefairy that could also talk, named Peepee. Ash also revealed that this movie was apparently one of his main inspirations for wanting to become a Pokemon trainer. Anyways, the movie went as follows. Red, Pikachu, and Peepee were walking, when suddenly Peepee stopped. Red yelled at it a little bit, trying to get it to continue to come along with him and his Pikachu, but then he realized that it was hungry and it had stopped because it had picked up a very tempting aroma to it, and it then started to follow the aroma and found a Teddy Ursa eating a hamburger. Well, about to eat the hamburger anyways, that was until Peepee ran up to it and snatched the burger from it and gobbled it in one bite, before Teddy Ursa could even bite it. Red got angry at his Clefairy for eating the innocent Teddy Ursa's burger, and Teddy Ursa started to cry, calling for its mom. Soon enough, the Clefairy was in trouble as the Teddy Ursa's mother and Ursaring charged in and absolutely pounded the shit out of Clefairy as well as Red and Pikachu, blasting them off, which made Ash laugh in the theater, he remembered, and he also remembered how Gary basically had a stone face. He wasn't fazed whatsoever. Showed how Gary was kind of a prick. Or maybe Gary was the nicer one here, because he wasn't laughing at a fucking innocent Pokemon being injured, because, Pikachu was still injured. I get Clefairy was a dick, but Pikachu was injured. Anyways, Brock then revealed that he had actually watched a movie before, back when he lived in Pewter City during his childhood, and it was a mini-western film, and he began to describe it, as we saw a flashback of Brock sitting in the theater with a few of his siblings who were just born at the time, pretty much. The western was particularly in the Middle West, and it was late afternoon when the two main characters, two sheriffs, a Snorlax and a Machoke, were about to fight, with Snorlax being the one that wanted to initiate the fight, as an Azurill, known as Miss Azurill, was standing outside the saloon that the two sheriffs were outside, worried about both of them and what would happen. The Azumarill didn't approve of the fighting, but Snorlax really wanted to fight Machoke for the Azumarill's love. The fight then began, as both the Snorlax and Machoke took steps back, and a classic Western draw battle was happening, since both Snorlax and Machoke had water guns, with actual Remoraid acting as the water guns, and they had them use water gun attacks on each other. When the water gun attacks made contact, Snorlax's hat was blown off, but Machoke was knocked down, drenched in water. Since the Azumarill didn't really like fighting, Snorlax didn't get Azumarill in the end, but it was still happy to have taken out the other sheriff, Machoke, because it thought that it had basically saved the old western village now, since Snorlax viewed Machoke as a threat. Max and May then recalled a movie from their childhood as well, when they sat in the theater together in Petalburg, and they also remembered watching this movie with their mom Caroline and their dad Norman. The movie was mainly about a giant Meowth known as Meowthzilla attacking a village, and he was roaming around the village, destroying everything in sight with hyper beams. Apparently the Meowth had been enlarged by aliens or some shit, so the trusty Marshtomp Air Force was sent to deal with the Meowth, along with the help of the Pichu brothers. And they both came in with fighter jets that fired energy blasts, but the energy blast did nothing aside from anger Meowthzilla, and caused him to blast even more hyper beams, doing even more damage to the town. One of the hyper beams even happened to hit the Marshtomp's fighter jet, which caused it to come crashing down, but it seemed as though Marshtomp was therefore exposed to the energy from the hyper beam that had come from another planet, since Meowthzilla was from another planet, and since Marshtomp was exposed to this energy, Marshtomp was as if it was from this other planet, and started to grow supersize, just like Meowthzilla, and it soon tackled Meowthzilla, defeating it and saving the city. Max was pretty enthused by this movie, although May actually saw a second one with a whole bunch of her friends in Petalburg, and she actually liked that one better. It was her favorite movie, and it was apparently based on the Titanic. Alright, that makes sense why May liked it then. And she began to describe it. Apparently, it was like Titanic in space, as the plot of the movie took place way out in the depths of the Milky Way galaxy, where a novelty space voyager was roaming through space with a romantic pair of Natu and Zatu aboard. And by a pair of Natu and Zatu, I mean there was one Natu and one Zatu, not two of each. Anyways, The Natu and Zatu were expressing their love for each other while on the ship going through the stars, and they were even on the deck of the ship to fully see the scenery. Suddenly, though, this lovely moment was disturbed when the Natu and Zatu were startled by an icy asteroid coming to collide with the ship. It was too late for the Natu and Zatu to do anything because it was too close, and unfortunately, the asteroid crashed, damaging the ship and separating Zatu from the ship and leaving it drifting off into space, away from Natu, as Natu cried. And Zatu yelled out into the void of space, telling Natu not to forget about it. With that, all of Ash and the gang's memories of the movies came to an end, and they had recited all the details they could remember. Although, Elijah revealed that he had actually worked on all of those films, so he knew the scripts and details front to back, so he was able to completely give an 100% accurate summary for each film. And even the behind-the-scenes details and shit that was cut from each movie. Elijah then revealed that the new movie that he was going to show, called Plus-1 Great Adventure, otherwise known as Plus-1 and the Princess Rescue, was going to blow all of his other movies out of the water. It was going to be fucking awesome. This led Ash to ask what it was supposed to be about, although Elijah was a little hesitant, as everything was supposed to be a secret yet, for now, so he didn't want to give stuff away. But he agrees to at least show them the beta plans for it, as well as read them the narration of the movie, since it was a silent film, so there was no dialogue. So he pulls out a book that had all the information in it, and all he really said was that it was about Plus-1 on a mission to get somewhere, and he read the first few lines of the narration before stopping himself, since he didn't want to give that much away. May and Max were both intrigued by the movie, with May being intrigued by the prospect of a princess due to the title, and Max being intrigued by the prospect of the movie being narrated. May and Max wanted to see it so much that they asked Ash if they could stay at the village for a little while when they arrived so that they could watch the movie, reminding Ash that they really wanted to watch it, even though they knew that Ash really wanted to go to his gym battle. But Ash was actually somewhat interested by the movie as well, so he agreed for them to stay at the town. Although they asked Elijah if it would be okay for them to stay at the town, since they thought that maybe he would only allow people who were actually from the village or town to watch the movie, since, you know, Ash, May, Brock, and Max, they've had opportunities to watch movies before, whereas the people from the village hadn't. But luckily for them, Elijah permitted them to watch the movie, so long as they helped with set up the portable theater when they arrived, and helped, you know, like, get the film playing and shit, and Ash and the gang agreed. Although they asked if maybe they could see the film tonight before they even went to the town, but Elijah denied this, because he was just going to be presenting the movie in the town tomorrow night anyways, and it took a bit of effort to set up the portable movie theater, so he just thought that Ash and the gang should just watch it when everyone else watched it, and Ash and the gang accepted this. Ash and the gang and Elijah then went to sleep, and the next morning, Elijah had Brock look in his guidebook to try and find a new way to the town, so that they could, you know, get to it without having to worry about the boulders, and sure enough, they were able to find a new way through the forest directly to the town, and they began their long trek there. And later on in the morning, they arrived in the town after pushing camera up and the film equipment. The first thing they saw upon entering the town was none other than some elderly villagers getting some water and putting it in pails from some moats. One of the elderly villagers stops what they were doing and greets Elijah, recognizing him, and soon she calls over all the other elderly villagers, as well as all the young kids in the village as well. All the villagers greet him and admit that they were expecting him to come back after Mariah sent the letter, and then Mariah joins the group as well, and all the kids, as well as the elders, eagerly ask what movie he was presenting this time. Really excited, since it had apparently been a year since the last time he was in the village. Elijah reveals the title of the movie, which excites Maria in particular. Elijah and Ash and the gang then go to the park in the village that was atop an incline, and they set up the portable theater for the movie, screen, film, slides, and all. Although Brock and Ash did most of the work, with Elijah, Max, and May more so watching. After the theater was set up, nighttime then arrived, as the moon shined in the sky, and all the villagers gathered atop the incline to watch the movie. There was barely any room left on the incline, because there was so many goddamn kids and elders ready to watch the movie. Max, Brock, May, and Ash were all sitting amongst the crowd as well, with Max eating popcorn, claiming he just had to eat popcorn with a movie. Suddenly, Elijah operated the reel of the movie and turned down some street lights and starts projecting the movie as the screen counts down from 10 all the way to 1, and Elijah declares, "Lights, camera, action," as the audience watches, finally ready to watch the movie, instead of just waiting for minutes and minutes on end, as it took a little bit for Elijah to figure out how to set up the projector, because, you know, everything had been set up, but he had to actually turn the projector on, and he had a little mishap. But anyways, the movie finally began, and Elijah played a radio, which played his voice as the narrator. Ash, Pikachu, and Mariah were particularly watching intently as the movie starts in a faraway land, where a castle was on a mountain, which was surrounded by a forest filled with a variety of Pokémon, including Sentret, Pichu, Blossom, Marill, Hoppip, Sunflora, Wurmple, Gulpin, and Shroomish. Also in the forest were our heroes, Plusle and Minun. And one day, they were invited to the castle that was owned by the beautiful Princess Curlia, and Plusle and Minun were obviously very excited to have been invited by the princess, so they excitedly make their way through the valley in between the forest to the castle, rolling down the hills in the process. Even though Plusle and Minun were already going at a very immensely fast pace, they soon received word, while they were on their way to the castle, that Princess Curlia had been captured by an X-Cloud, so this just made them run extremely fast. But they ran so fast that they ended up crashing into huge boulders, which the children in the audience thought was funny every time. which was Elijah's intention. Anyways, eventually, the plus one mine managed to make it past the boulders, but come across a huge Armaldo walking their path and threatening to crush them if they went any further to the castle. Likely, the Armaldo was working for the X-Cloud or some shit. Armaldo prepares to attack to stop plus one mine, lashing at them with its claw as plus one mine tried to fight back. But before we could see how the fight turned out, the screen suddenly went black and two shadowy figures appeared, much to the audience's shock. Being behind the projector, and then these two shadowy figures knock over the projector and reveal themselves as Team Rocket, Jesse and James, and then Meowth and Wobbuffet make their entrances as well. Doing their motto, as they planned to at least steal the movie equipment if they couldn't steal the camera up. Some of the kids in the audience believed that this was just part of the show, but once Ash cried out, warning everyone of Team Rocket, and Jessie sent out her Viper and had to use a haze attack on the entire audience to blind them so they could sneak away with the equipment, all the kids realized that the movie had been disrupted. And once the smoke cleared, Elijah panically turned on the lights so everyone could see what was going on, and Elijah noticed that the lights were the only thing left. All of the actual movie supplies, the film, screen, camera, it was all gone, and everyone came to the conclusion that Team Rocket must have escaped with it. Of course, they stole the projector as well. The kids in the audience started to panic, so Elijah made an announcement over the village's loudspeaker for everyone to remain calm and seated, promising he would go searching for all of the equipment, and Ash and the gang offered to help. Although Elijah, Ash, May, and Max were the only ones that went off to search because they suggested to Brock that the kids would need entertainment while they were gone, and they couldn't just be left to sit there and be bored. So they asked Brock to stay behind and keep the kids entertained, with May coming up with this idea very fast, so she didn't actually have an idea of what Brock should do to keep the kids entertained. Ash and the gang just instructed Brock to do that, and Brock was reluctant, since, he obviously didn't know how to keep the kids entertained, but before he could protest, Elijah, Ash, Max, and May had already left, so Brock had to come up with something entirely on his own. While Max, May, Elijah, and Ash ran off, Brock, although he panicked at first, did manage to come up with an idea, as he realized that his Lombre was a pretty good dancer, so he sent out his Lombre and had it dance, while he danced along with Lombre, while singing a song that he called Brock's Paradise, and the kids actually seemed to enjoy it, though not because the song was really good, but because it was so bad it was kind of funny. At least that's what I think. Maybe kids liked it, who knows. Maybe they just enjoyed Brock's getup as well. He had a Pokeball microphone, a sombrero, a pink, purple, and red suit. It was pretty extravagant for him. Meanwhile, as for Elijah, Ash, May, and Max, they actually managed to find something that could potentially lead them to Team Rocket, as they found a trail of film that Team Rocket must have dropped. And with Ash confirming this, because when he looked at it closely, he realized that it had to have been Elijah's, since there was frames of the movie on it. And Max looked closer down a path in the village, and luckily for them, Max spotted a whole path of film through the woods, and they made fun of Team Rocket, since they must have accidentally dropped this trail, and now Ash, May, Max, and Elijah could follow this trail right to Team Rocket, and the rest of the film equipment. Meanwhile, speaking of Team Rocket, they had all of the film equipment in a wheelbarrow so that it was easier for them to haul off, with James and Meowth being the ones pulling, because even though they had asked Jessie to help, she had adamantly refused. Soon, Meowth and James got tired, and they got mad that they didn't capture Camera Up as well, since Camera Up could have moved the shit for them. They asked Jessie for help once again, but Jessie refused immediately once again, and insisted on relaxing, as she simply just sat on the wheelbarrow, while James and Meowth pulled, only making the wheelbarrow heavier. Jessie then looked behind her, and was the first of the Team Rocket trio to finally notice that the film has been dropping out of the wheelbarrow, unraveling as they went, leaving a trail, and Jessie knew that this meant Ash and the gang could easily track them down, so she instantly ordered Meowth to do something, and Meowth hurriedly came up with the idea to roll up all the film, getting rid of the trail, but just as the trail had been rolled up, May, Max, Ash, and Elijah arrived, and demanded that Team Rocket give back the film equipment, although Jessie refused and sent out Viper to attack, leaving Ash to send out his Grovyle to attack as well. Viper went for the first attack, being a bite, but Grovyle just dodges and then uses a bullet seed, hitting Viper right on the head. With Viper weakened, Grovyle then just uses quick attack to send Team Rocket blasting off. Although as they blast off, Team Rocket grabs the projector and blasts off with it, but Team Rocket drop it, allowing Max to simply catch it. Meanwhile, back at the incline where the movie was originally playing, where Brock currently was, Brock was getting very tired of singing and was about to faint on stage, both due to tiredness and nervousness, because he feared what he was going to do, since he only had this one song, Brock's Paradise, and he'd been singing it over and over and over again, but he knew that the kids would eventually get tired of that. Thankfully, just then, May, Max, Ash, and Elijah arrived with the film equipment. Once Ash, May, Max, and Elijah had ran up the incline, everyone cheered, seeing that they had recovered the film equipment, and Elijah quickly fixed the projector and turned it back on and turned the lights off, so the movie officially continued after a little countdown, and the movie resumes right where it left off, where Plusle and Minun were about to battle the Armaldo. Things weren't looking good for the Plusle and Minun, though, as their electric attacks weren't doing absolutely anything to Armaldo, and they were about to get absolutely pummelled, but thankfully, a Pikachu came to the rescue, knocking out Armaldo with a single tackle. This leads Ash's Pikachu to blush when all the audience members direct their attention towards him, thinking that he had to be as epic as the one in the movie. Anyways, the plot continues, since now that Armaldo had been taken care of, the Plusle and Minun, along with Pikachu, continue onwards to the castle, excited to visit Kirlia, once they save it. Eventually, they encountered a few more enemy Pokemon and took them all out, and when they got to the castle, they first encountered the X-Cloud that had captured Kirlia, but with the teamwork of Plusle, Minun, and Pikachu, they were able to take out the X-Cloud and rescue Princess Kirlia. And the movie then ends with Curlia, along with Plusle, and Pikachu, joining all of the Pokemon in the forest around the castle to have a huge celebration at the fact that Curlia was saved. And the movie comes to an end as everyone starts clapping and cheering in the audience. Unbeknownst to everyone in the audience, Team Rocket had actually entered the village and were watching the movie on the incline behind some bushes just for fun and out of curiosity. And James initially suggested that they take the opportunity while the audience was distracted to try and steal something, maybe even the movie equipment again, but Jesse and Meowth just ignored James since they wanted to continue watching. And upon finishing the movie, Team Rocket, including James, all actually started to cry, touched by the movie, and they were even a bit ashamed of themselves that they were trying to steal such a touching movie. Jessie was going on and on about how good the movie was as Team Rocket left the village, and she was even wiping her tears using Meowth as a cloth, and also having Meowth catch excess tears as they dropped. James actually wasn't crying, though, at all, unlike Meowth and Jessie. Well, he was, but not because he thought the movie was touching. He actually was crying because he was depressed that they didn't get to steal anything, and instead just watched the movie, and annoyingly commented to Jessie and Meowth that if they cried like that to a boring happy ending, he wondered how they would cry when they saw a sad ending, and suggested that they please get on with something more entertaining, such as their next Pokemon heist. And eventually, Jessie and Meowth agreed, along with Wobbuffet, who popped out of his Pokeball, and they all walked off away from the village.